Welcome to the HYROX Heroes podcast. I am your host, Damien Votter, and let's get into the episode. This topic today is one that literally it's a fundamental of all of my training, program, design, and it's a principle that has allowed me to become not only an effective coach when training others, but just get results in much quicker time, but also results that stay around much longer, right? How good does that sound? And this is something that really got instilled to me through a coaching course that I did through the OPEX program. I became an OPEX coach a couple years ago, and it's from a guy called James Fitzgerald. And he's very renowned, through the CrossFit scene. He was one of the original CrossFit winners back in like 2007. And he's gone and implemented this whole coaching program. And one key thing, like literally one key thing that he has instilled in me, with many other things, by the way, is this idea of rewarding the pacer. And this idea of reward the pacer goes into the ideas of consistency, finding sustainability, but also looking at people as individuals and understanding, what pace, what level, what intensity, what is appropriate for that person, right, to make the most progress. So one of the biggest problems that, I've experienced as an athlete and I've done as a coach is, I've seen it so much firsthand, is people just going too hard, too high intensity, too often. And what it does, and it's proven, and I've seen it, and I've worked with these people and I've fixed and correct all these issues, is that what it does is it leads to, them, not getting the result they want, but also it leads to them like eventually quitting. And eventually, this could be after 6 months, this could be after 3 years, is they cannot keep up the pace any longer and completely go a different direction. These are the people that eventually go, fitness isn't for me, fitness is too hard, and they fail to learn how to have a good relationship with training, with fitness, and how to achieve a goal. Now, you could be listening to this and potentially, you used to be at a certain level of fitness maybe years ago, and now you might be looking at gearing up for HYROX, and you're just going to go back to the time that you used to be fit. And if you go back to that time, right, potentially you were just training really intense. A lot of the times you had a really good friendship group around you. There was a lot of motivation. Maybe you were single. You didn't have kids at that point. Maybe your job wasn't as stressful. So these are the framework that we think that I need to get back to that, right? But you can't get back to that because potentially now you got more responsibilities with work, you got family, you got relationships, you got all these things, right? So that framework back then that worked for a short period of time back then does not work now because it never did work properly then. You were actually on the path, right, to eventually failing at some point. Now, even though it got you a quick result, right, it also is, you lost it potentially. So here we are and going, okay, how do we now continue to get back to training, right? Get back to consistency, get back to a high level of fitness, right? So, or like, how do we now best do that moving forward? Because I not only want to get fit and in shape, but I want to stay in this shape for the rest of my life. This isn't just once I'm there in 3 months, then I want to lose all this fitness, right? So the idea here is reward the pacer. It's such a powerful concept, and we're going to talk about it here now. And I guarantee you that if you can start to implement this mentality into your training, not only will you get an amazing result, whether it's 6 weeks from your race, 6 months from your race, I guarantee this mentality will help you stay fit for the rest of your life, right? Because it is such a powerful concept, right? And coaches like myself and the best coaches and the best athletes in the world, this is nothing new to them, right? And they would all agree. I know they would all agree with me that when it comes to this pacing, consistency, finding sustainability and understanding what that means to you, right? They would all agree that this is one of the key things that leads to everyone's success. So, guys, if you're keen to follow me on this episode, let's dive into it, as I'm sure there's a lot to unpack, and it's going to be a very valuable episode for you. So, all right, so we're going to dive again into that theory. All right, reward the pacer. So we want consistency. So when we're thinking of pacing, now consistency can be in multiple areas. Consistency can be in a workout, right? If we're going for a 5 kilometer run, we want to be consistent over the 5 kilometers. Consistency can be throughout the week. We want to be consistent over the week. All right, we train Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. And and now over the month, now we're doing that over the month. So 4 weeks in a row, we're being consistent. We're doing that for 6 months. We're doing that for 12 months. Imagine if you were training 3 times a week, every single week, without missing a week for 12 months. This idea of consistency comes along. So when we're thinking of consistency, this thing is more important over intensity, right? We've got to understand that consistency is something you need to establish first before intensity. How many people, when they're looking to get into a new program, new fitness, they're excited and intensity is high. They start running really fast. They start training really hard. They're potentially in a HYROX session with friends. They're trying to win the workout, whatever it is. But if we prioritize this approach, eventually, not every day you can go super intense. Not every day can you perform. And then that can lead to start to becoming inconsistent, right? And this is going to be really, really, really damaging. So prioritizing and maintaining consistency over all out intensity is what we need to build sustainable progress, right? To build sustainable progress. So again, when we want to, and this is where, I mentioned we want to think of the individual always. And that's why, it's always it depends answer, because we've got to understand who is the individual and what do they want to do. So if you have a HYROX race, right, we've got to understand what consistency and sustainable is for your race versus someone who's like, I just want to train for health and well-being. So that idea of sustainability and consistency is very, very different. But now that I'm working with a lot of especially HYROX athletes, that is always, and someone actually asked me this the other day, they said to me, how long do I need, to be on the training program for? And I was just like, well, it depends, number one, your time frame, and it depends on your goal. Like, what do you want to, because if you want to get to the podium versus I just want to complete the race, right? The idea of sustainable and being consistent is very, very different. So we need to work out at that point. So you got to ask yourself, what is it that I want to achieve? And then at what level, at what point can I still find sustainability, but in line with that goal? So if you are wanting to be a podium finisher, all right, we got to train super hard, but we still have to go. But I got 12 weeks, I got 6 months of training in front of me. So how do I train at the highest performance that I can, at the highest level, at the highest intensity that I can, but that is sustainable for the next 6 months? See how that sustainability, factoring in how I need to be consistent, is the priority, which limits the intensity then you can output, right? So we got to start there. It's so, so important. And again, because you can only, it's like, if you drink water, right? For those that are listening on the podcast, I got a big liter bottle right now. It's like you can't drink 1 liter right now on the spot and all of that water get absorbed, right? Where if I drank 200 mil, every hour on the hour, there's going to be a much better chance of that getting absorbed. Same with fitness. You just can't do all the fitness, all the intensity at once. So that's why if we are consistent, that way we can get the most out of our training and make the most progress. I like that analogy. It's a good one, right? So hopefully we can understand that when it comes to consistency over intensity. And again, this is all coming back to understanding pacing, right? This is now pacing, right? When it comes to looking at program, right? How to implement the program. And that's why we want to reward the pacer. If you got that friend that's like, I trained 6 days a week this week, right? It's like, cool, great. That is good for you, but don't then do 1 day a week next week or 2 days next week. Like, because then we're rewarding people for doing the wrong kind of hard. Where you might see that friend that's every week just doing 3 sessions, 3 sessions, 3 sessions. That's the person that should be acknowledged versus the person doing something extreme, right? Generally because they want the attention for doing so. Okay. It's the same idea when it comes to a workout and someone's like killed it, smashed everyone in the session because they just went way too hard in a training session. It's like that person can have the satisfaction for the session, but it's like, can they keep it up? Right. That's the next question. So we all have those friends as well, by the way, that can keep it up. Right. So they're being sustainable, right? Which is really good. All right. We're just going to go into the next point. Okay. So we want repeatable performances. Right. So again, when we're looking at being consistent, right, we're looking at being sustainable, you got to factor in that my performance then also needs to be repeatable. So performing at a level that can be replicated across multiple sessions, right? This is how we enhance endurance, right? And overall fitness without burning out. This is crucial. And this is a big part of, as a coach, what we look at when it comes to program design. Anyone who works directly with me, I'm always talking about being repeatable, being repeatable, being repeatable. I'll keep repeating myself. But we look at repeatability from even if it's like in a workout. So if we got like 5 rounds to complete, let's just say it's like a 500-meter row into 20 burpees into 20 sit-ups, right? We'll time that as a round. And as a coach or as I train clients, and this is how, I recommend, you want to find repeatability. So you want round one to be like, it took me 3 minutes 10. Round two, 3 minutes 10. Round three, 3 minutes 10. Round four, 3 minutes 10. Like the better you can make that repeatable means it's more accurate representation of your fitness, right? Versus I did it in 2 minutes 50, then second round was 3:10, then the third round was 3:40, fourth round was 4:10, and then the last one was 4 minutes 50. That shows that you weren't able to repeat your round times. Your performance was diminishing, and it's very hard to understand what your level of fitness is, right? So that is an example of being repeatable in training sessions. But let's just say you're running, like you're trying to improve a 5K run. If you go out and run 5K this week, right, you run it in 25 minutes, right? But your kilometers are all over the place, very similar. But then next week you run it in 26 minutes. The next week you run it in 22 minutes. The next week you run it in 28 minutes. Like, what's this variation telling us? It's telling us that the efforts and the speeds in the workout are too different, right? Because nothing was accurately measured. So that tells me that that person is running based off how they feel. Other factors like did they eat food properly? Are they fueled properly? Versus like that, where that person can have all those external things going on. But if they took more attention to go, you know what, I'm going to run at a 5 minute 30 pace for all of my 5 kilometers today, right? And that was easy. That was about 80% effort. I didn't overexert. It was very manageable. Even the next week, if they're a little bit tired or they haven't eaten enough or they got a bad night's sleep, they still can run at 5:30. Then the next week, they then might go, I'm running at 5:25, right? And then the next week they run at 5:20. So over those 4 weeks, they've improved their pace, right? Because it was repeatable from day one. So they were able to manage themselves better. Hopefully this makes sense, right? So that's why it is important not only be repeatable over weeks, but you have to be repeatable in the session. Or else, what are we really then gauging our progress? How are we gauging our result just based on overall time? We got to no, we got to think better. We got to think of being repeatable in the session. That again, coming back to reward the pacer. I don't want to go to the person who did the fastest 5K in a training run. I want to go to the person who had the most repeatable round times in a run or in a workout. That person then is getting more out of their training. And this is how you are going to start to make better progress in your training. All right. Hope this is like really, really key information. Hopefully it's really making sense. All right. This is then going to turn into longevity in training. You can imagine this person who's like slowing it down a little bit to find repeatability, right? To find those efforts that can be recognized, can be sustained, right? Now that person is starting to understand how to then also perform it over and over and over again, which is going to turn into longevity. Again, going back to that example that if you are just going way too hard for a period of time, eventually, you're getting older, right? Again, responsibilities, work, other factors. It's like you can't sustain a super high performance output all the time. So the longevity of that can, be really reduced if we don't factor in how to, be consistent, be paced, right, and train at appropriate level, right? So again, if you want to be fit for a long period of time, if you want longevity in training, you have to learn the habits, all right, of understanding, right? Just pacing, right? Understanding how, you don't need to get good at maximum fitness all the time. Sub-maximal, getting good at 80% of fitness will allow you still to make progress and to improve for a very long time, for years and years, for decades. All right. So again, that one should make a lot of sense now that you've understood the other 2 points. All right. And that's why, we want to focus on efficiency, rewarding the pacer, understanding this idea of pacing, right? It's all about efficiency. It's about balance, energy expenditure, helping, remain composed and efficient, right? Especially in high stress or long duration workouts. So when you can focus, so when you can slow it down a bit, pace yourself, right? Take the intensity out, the real high intensity, you're gonna be moving better. Your quality of movement is better. And a better mechanic, right, means you're more efficient, means you're more effective, right? So not only will this help again, like if you're like how many people have had sort of a back injury potentially from, let's call it like a deadlift, all right? Pretty common. Now, most of the time, that injury from a deadlift doesn't happen from the moment it happens. It happens from a compounding of poor mechanics, poor efficiency over time. So again, this can still be over like a 3 month period. There was slightly a bad, you overexerted at when the weight was light because that was still, heavyish for you. You've kept pushing intensity, intensity, intensity. There was some bad mechanics. There were some inefficiencies. Then eventually, as you just kept pushing, 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 then months later, boom, your back goes out, right? And that was because, again, now it's under more stress and under more load, that inefficiency, eventually that pipe bursts and there's your injury. So when we can also slow it down a little bit and go, so even for strength lifting, so like deadlifts, right? He's going, I don't need to just build up in these 4 sets to a heavy max for the day. What I need to do is I need to find a good working weight and I need to do 4 sets of that working weight. So instead of building up to, let's call it a 200 kilo deadlift over 4 sets, maybe you build up to 170 kilos, but you do 170 for 4 sets, right? Repeatability. Then, the next month you're at 180, the next month you're at 190, and the next month you're at 200. That person has developed super good efficiencies in their lifting versus the person who was like, I built up to 190 in the first month. I built up to 200 in the second month. I built up, to my 4 set to 220 in my third month. So it's like, yes, the weight's going higher, but then at the end of the third month, I hurt myself. Now I'm out of training, right? But also during that time, I was overstressing, overloading, and I was always going maximal. Where that person who's built up to 200 is still at a very sub-maximal effort because they're focused on repeatability. Now that person, if they have an event coming up or a powerlifting comp or need to max out, then can ramp it up as such. But for training, it's a bad method that again, it's going to lead to a bad position, right? So hopefully this makes sense for people who are lifting there, right? Think about like running. Like running is such a technique efficient, like you need to be efficient with that movement. So again, if you're running at a pace that is too fast, if you're going for your zone 2 run, but your heart rate is like 180 beats per minute, 170 beats per minute, where it's meant to be like 130. It's like your running technique can't be as efficient as if you're working on it at a lower heart rate. Okay, just think about when you're under the most stress, the most fatigue, right? That's when got to look at your mechanics and your efficiencies, right? So that's where pacing and learning how to pace again from an in workout situation to a over months situation matters, right? It really, really matters, right? So again, we want to reward that pacing. So, how do we implement this? How do we implement the reward the pacer mentality? Okay, so we're going to go over some points here. Okay, so number one, we want to set maintainable goals, pace goals, right? So start with a pace that you can realistically hold over multiple rounds or intervals. This builds the foundation, right, of your endurance or your strength repeatability. Okay, so again, it's just about collecting some data, right? So the best way to do it, like I've spoke about in all those other points, is you then have to go, if I got 4 sets to do of something, can I do that weight over all 4 sets? If you can, it's repeatable. If you can't, it's not. If you can, that then gives you data to go, I can now go a little bit heavier. What's too heavy? Well, what is too heavy is that if I can't repeat it over 4 sets, right? If I'm running, can I run every kilometer the same? Right? I can. Awesome. That's repeatable. That's my pace. I wasn't able to sustain this pace over all 5 kilometers. Okay, well, that's maybe too quick. See how it's very easy. It's just data. Nothing's right or wrong. It's just all good data. Then to start to figure it out, right? So you need to set, that's why it's like you need to set realistic goals. Don't think you're going to start to learn the run. And just because of sheer motivation and excitement, you're going to go run at 4:30 pace, right? You have to just slow it down, right? And set more realistic targets. All right. Second thing, so you're going to set maintainable pace goals, right? You're going to track and adjust, right? So like I just sort of said, you're then going to track and adjust every week. And that's why data input is so important. And if you're not tracking and writing your results down anywhere, then you really are sort of guessing week to week, right? So we want to take that sort of guesswork out. Just in your notes, in your phone, just go notes. Really great way to do it. Okay. And that will help you make minor adjustments as you go. Uh, Sorry about my phone, guys. All right. The third thing we're going to do is we're going to prioritize quality, right, over quantity, right? This is again going back to that idea that I spoke about before. So we don't want to be pushing max reps or max pacing, right? We always want to factor quality first. If you factor in quality over quantity, what will happen eventually is that you'll get more efficient, you'll get better at that movement. And because you're in such a good position and the quality of the movement so good, it will then equal better performance, better power output, better endurance, just as a byproduct. So I see it all the time, and I do this especially when I coach people, is I don't stand for, I have a very high standard when it comes to movement quality. I don't care if the weight's got to be a lot lighter. I don't care if you have to go a lot slower, but you first have to move well. Once you can move well, then we can start moving forward with that. It's like, I don't want you to create all these bad habits. And now, when you're most fatigued and pushing the hardest, that now we're going to all of a sudden correct all these bad habits. Absolutely not. So you always got to prioritize quality over quantity. Okay. Okay. RPE. Rate of perceived exertion is a really great tool. You might have heard coaches say it, like, what's your RPE? Or tell me what your RPE. So it's like, what did you feel out of 10? So 10 being super hard, right? 0 being very easy, right? It's like, what's your RPE? So we always, when we're training and we're aiming around being repeatable and pacing, and again, especially when it comes to training and how we build into an event, right? You have to be training at around a 6 to 7 most of the time. If you're training at like a 9 to 10, right, for training, you could be overexerting. Now, there's a time and place for everything. If you're, in your lead up to an event, well, that number has to start increasing. If you're 6 months away, it has to be very sustainable, very maintainable. So PRE is based on you and what you think, right? And that's why it's such an important tool, because there's so many things that can go into how you run, how you lift, how you do HYROX, right? It can be sleep, it can be nutrition, it could be stress, it could be your mental health, it could be all of these things. So just because like you're looking at your pace on your watch doesn't accurately mean that's an approach, like the right intensity. So again, you might have had really bad sleep, dehydrated, and had a big fight with your partner, right? So if you're like, shit, I just need to go at a 4:30 pace because that's what I did last week, that can be really damaging to your training and your performance because that PRE last week could have been like a 7. Now it's a 9, nearly a 10 because your body's under so much stress. So that's why, if we can be repeatable in managing ourselves as well from a PRE point of view, right? It's a really good way to manage yourself when it comes to training. So you're not so hard on yourself because again, pacing, repeatability, longevity, all these things matter. So that's a big one that I use a lot with clients. And these are giving you the tools, right, to learn how to manage yourself really. And that's one of the big things there. All right, build in rest and recovery. Right. So we got to schedule in rest days, right? And lower intensity workouts. Because again, if the idea and if the mentality, right, is just go hard or go home all the time, right? You're not going to be able to sustain your efforts, right? So that's another thing too, is that you got to consistently have the right recovery and rest protocol in there or else this thing just falls apart very, very quickly. Now, again, if you're young and got a really good crew around you, yeah, you can burn the candle for a long time, right? But eventually you can't. And then you need to relearn how to do fitness at a later stage. So we don't want that. So you got to learn, and it's really good to see actually nowadays that like recovery is actually a great big topic, and a lot of younger people understand the importance of it, right? So you have to apply this when we want to go to distance and again, I'm talking like, and again, all this talk of going the distance, I'm not talking about like how we can train for the rest of our life. It's not just a longevity thing. For those who are like, yeah, but I want to perform and I want to train. Exactly. If you got 6 months in front of you, again, I mentioned this before. How do we get you at the highest performance, at the highest intensity? But we can do that for 6 months, right? A lot of people are just almost, you're going at a 3 month intensity with 6 months of training, if that makes sense, right? So we got to understand that. That's why, again, it's always about we've got to understand the individual as well, right? Apply pacing to all workouts. This is great. This is what I absolutely love. And again, it's been a huge game changer when it comes to my training, my results, and working with clients is this idea of pacing goes to everything. Everything. It goes to my long endurance runs. It goes to my shorter, high intense workouts. It goes to my running. It goes to my lifting. It goes to everything. Everything. It even goes to, you got to understand that you have to pace, apply the right pacing to everything. Because that means you can get the most out of everything that you do. Again, if I'm doing strength, it's four working sets, right? Example, it's not just build up to one, right? Different paces. When I run, I'm looking at hitting consistent numbers, right? Um, when I'm doing HYROX, right? We do 60-minute, 80-minute HYROX type sessions, but I track my rounds, I track my, repeatability because that helps me pace and that ultimately helps me perform faster. It helps me perform faster. But also when it comes to like HYROX, right? Understanding my training pace better allows me then to understand my race pace too. Because if I'm trying to be repeatable in training, but racing is not repeatable, racing is a one-off, like now let's absolutely full send it, right? So now I know where pacing is, and now I know where not pacing is. I know then what is slightly too quick, and that's the type of pacing that I want to then go to race day with. I want to go to that effort that I know I'm only good for one round, right? So, but I can only truly understand that if I also know what I can do for 2 rounds or what I can do sort of repeatable. I know where I need not to be, then I know where I have to be faster, right? So pacing is huge, right? And then monitor energy levels as well, right? So pay attention to how your energy feels at the end of each workout. The goal is to finish strong without feeling overly taxed. This is like one of the key things that you will recognize if you've done it correctly, right? You should not be rolling on the ground, gasping for air, absolutely spent, like you're barely able to stay alive, right? That can be, even though we've all done it, we've had workouts like it, and it's cool. Like it's cool to overexert. It's good to know that you've pushed as hard as you can. But if that is more common, right? If that is a common thing, then we are overpacing, we are overexerting, right? It means that again, when we look to nutrition and we look to fueling our body on a consistent level, it's like, are we not eating enough, or are we overexerting beyond that? So do we need to eat more food? If we start doing these things as well as a consistent thing all the time, maybe that might lead to weight gain, because we know performance and fueling, right, doesn't always mean losing weight. It can mean you're putting on weight because you're always trying to meet those demands. So especially if you're trying to aesthetically, like, get in better shape, if you're trying to perform but keep body fat down, because we do want to look good, we want to feel good as well. To say we don't for most of us, I'll say, that's a goal that's probably in there as well. So we got to understand that by being more paced, right, by being more consistent, by finding more sustainable levels, means that we can be more consistent and better with our food as well. We're not going to then need all this extra food or feel so tired that we're just going to want to smash down two pizzas, or we can't keep up with our energy expenditure, right? So it's really important that also our output helps us, control our input as well when it comes to food. So again, guys, these are some amazing points. Hopefully this is really resonating with a lot of people, and hopefully you can start to see potentially where maybe you're doing, the opposite in areas, right? Maybe you're doing some of these well, maybe you've got room to improve. All right, so now we're going to wrap this up pretty soon. So we're going to go over now we're going to go over some of the benefits, right? Again, of rewarding the pacer approach, right? Developing this mindset. Uh, so this is a big one too, right? Now it's not really an issue until it's an issue, right? Injuries, right? When we are more, controlled, when we pace ourselves better, right? We also reduce the risk of injury, right? So we avoid we lower the risk of like straining ourselves, burning out. And we know when we've got all this strain and load on the body, right? We're more likely to, tear a muscle. We're likely to, joint instability. We're more likely to, again, move with bad mechanics that then could, put us in a bad position and really hurt ourselves, right? So we don't want to do that. And ultimately, that will set us back so much than anything else, right? Improved performance consistency, right? So again, improved performance consistency. If you want to perform consistently, if you want to make that progress, right, and see it and track it and be accurate with what you're doing, you got to create, right, this consistent, repeatable, this paced approach to all of your training and effects, right? And again, I'm talking to everyone here, high level performance athlete, person who just wants to train for longevity. It's the same approach, same principles, but again, applied to your goals and to who you are as an individual. We got to understand that. All right. And so this one is a great one to finish on as well, right? So guys, this is what separates, right? The people who stay fit for a lifetime, the people who get on the podium, and the people who just achieve their goals, right? Is this will enhance your mindset, right? Like you can't just like give someone a good mindset. Like they gotta learn it, they gotta develop it, right? And this will foster like a disciplined mindset, right? By thinking long term and not just going for instant gratification, instant reward. Developing a mindset like this, you'll achieve so much more in your life in everything, right? Apply it to business, apply it to your relationships, apply it to your training. You're really learning a skill, right? That is of success. So you'll become more disciplined, you'll practice, and you'll be more patient when it comes to being goal oriented, all right, which again will improve your mental resilience. And then if you are someone that is seeing that progress, doing the work, staying disciplined, the confidence you will create from this is crazy. And that's why, again, people who do the work, who do this sustainable, who build up over a period of time, who, like can see the data, can accurately move that thing forward every week, not doing anything crazy, not doing anything special, just literally executing well week after week after week. They're the person. That's the person when it comes to like, let's look at HYROX or anything. When you see those, those 8 or 10 people literally on the starting line, like not buried, 3, 4 rows back, literally the ones standing at the front, they're the ones that like, when they take the photo or the video of them running out of the chute, right? They're the ones that have done the work because they're confident. That's why they put themselves at the front. The people who haven't been doing this, they just sit back, right? And just they just are still hoping for a great effort. But the ones who do the work, they're the ones that step up to that line and are ready to go, right? So because again, you can't deny it. When you've done the work, that feeling is crazy. It's crazy. So, guys, this is a huge episode, right? I really hope you got a lot of value from this. And again, these are literally some principles that have changed my life, literally in the way I train, the way I coach people. It's transformed everything, and it's nothing out of the world, right? But again, if you apply this, if you create this mindset, right, when it comes to your training and then how to look at performance, how to look at making progress, right, I guarantee you will go to a completely new level from there. All right, guys, thank you so much. Appreciate you all. And if you haven't already, guys, HYROX Heroes, we have a free community, right? Where we put this very video goes into that community. We do a video every Tuesday. We have lots of other insights into helping you do HYROX, right? As well as we have a paid group as well, where we have training programs. I coach and work with you directly. We go deeper into topics, right? And I give you, more insights. But that's really for the people that are in that sort of growth mindset, the people that really want to take control of their training. So again, we've got a group for both of you, right? Whether you're just dipping your toe in, you're training good, you just want some more tips and insights, or if you're someone that really wants to really, get into your training, get some help, get some support, get the exact plan that works. We have that as well. Links are down below, right? In the links in the YouTube or the podcast channel, wherever it is. But guys, other than that, again, appreciate you all. I really hope this is valuable. Let me know if it does help you in any way. Always love the feedback. And until the next episode, guys, keep training hard.